Okay, Justin, I'm going to enable the waiting room, and then you can let people in. And then if there's anyone that Zoom bombs it, you
Yeah,
just
I'll manage that. Yeah.
okay. Okay, so let's get started here. So first of all, thank you everyone for joining on your Sunday afternoon. This is a very important topic, and so what this is talking about is, there's a national George Floyd issue, and then there are local issues as well. And so the purpose of this is I want to hear the community's thoughts on this. So we've gotten hundreds of emails on this. So I'll quickly introduce myself. Then I'd love for everyone to be able to quickly introduce yourself, maybe say what neighborhood you're in, and then a few of your thoughts on this topic. So I'll start off first, and then I'm going to go down as I see people on the screen here. So I see T Charter, then Becky Bull. So I'll start first. So I'm Councilmember Greg Tanaka, and we'll have T Charter go, and then Becky.
Okay. I'm Carolyn Harder, and I'm interested in this issue because of the local actions that can be taken. And I'm not sure just how involved I want to get, but I want to hear what other people are thinking and doing, and what we can do in Palo Alto to improve the situation here.
Okay, great. And which neighborhood are you in?
Oh, I'm from Palo Verde.
Palo Verde, awesome. I'm in College Terrace, by the way. Okay, Becky followed by Alice.
Hi, I'm Becky Bull, and it's the same thing. These are just issues that I'm very concerned about and just wanted to see what could be done locally. And I live on the Stanford campus.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Alice followed by Brady.
Hi, my name is Alice Holmes, and I live in Old Palo Alto, and I'm concerned about these issues. And I think that there's a piece here that the community can play, the public can play, that I'd like to see our involvement and our students' involvement and everything in these issues, especially during this time this summer when so many of us have additional time that we could devote to helping out.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Alice. Brady followed by Harriet.
I'm Brady Mitchell. I live in the Ventura area. And I'm just really concerned about the state of affairs in our country and know that the only way to make real change is for people like us to start at the local level. So I want to see what we can do. And I know that we have had issues with police brutality here in Palo Alto, and here down the street from me at Happy Donuts is where some pretty nasty police brutality has happened in the past. So I want to see what we can do to fix that.
Hi there, I'm Harriet Stern. I live in Leland Manor, and I want to echo Brady and Carolyn and Becky and Alice, and also say I'm interested in racial as well to discuss that. So thank you for the platform.
Of course. So Katie followed by KCH. I don't know your name. So Katie, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, my name is Katie. I'm actually a PhD candidate in the political science department at Stanford, so I live on campus here. And I'm really interested in understanding the scope of the problem and also using local mechanisms to enact change and kind of look at some of the work that my colleagues do in the department on police brutality and police accountability and apply that here in Palo Alto.
Okay, great. Thank you, Katie. Go KCH followed by Carolyn.
Hi, my name is Catherine.
Accountability and apply that here.
Sorry, I just muted someone else. I think joined, but we'll have them. Well, Jack, we'll have you go later.
Okay.
KCH, why don't you go first?
Hi, my name is Catherine Holyfield. I'm a physician. I am a homeowner in Charleston Gardens for the last 17 years. I have interacted with the police. I have a son with mental illness, and we've interacted with the police, and I would like to improve how those interactions go in the future.
Okay,
When I
great.
first moved here, I was very concerned about the Palo Alto police and how they treat African Americans.
Okay, great. Thank you, Catherine. We'll have Carolyn followed by Athena.
You're muted, by the way, so you should click
Carolyn, I think you're
unmute.
muted.
Okay,
Now you're not muted.
my name is Carolyn Schwartz, and I live in the Duveneck St. Francis neighborhood. I have Black friends who have had issues with the police over the years, and I was just wondering how we, as a city, comply with the 8 can't wait policies. And so I looked at Palo Alto, and then I saw the issue, the Palo Alto Weekly issue this week. So I do have some questions about the police department policies in terms of transparency and maybe screening and perhaps some fundamental changes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carolyn. Athena followed by iPhone DMAP. So Athena, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, my name's Athena and I live in Ventura, and I'm not echoing everyone's concerns. I'm also really concerned that the manual was written not by anyone in our city, and the highest civilian oversight. It's actually been outsourced to a private company that was created by white police and is led by white men called Lexipol, and I'm very concerned about that and would also like to add that into our discussion as well as other concerns about policing and transparency.
Okay, great. Thank you, Athena. Let's see. iPhone DMAT followed by Ella. Hello? Okay. DMAT, do you want to say anything or no? Okay. We'll skip you then. Ella followed by Jack.
Hi, sorry, I'm in
okay.
the car. Is
Oh,
this,
sorry. Ella, go ahead.
oh, is this okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just curious about like why, sort of where the pushback is within Palo Alto City Council against moving to like, I don't know, defund the police, move the budget deficit from COVID-19 to fall on the Palo Alto Police Department. And I guess, yeah, I'm curious the realities of the public safety risks in Palo Alto. What responses do they require? What programs we have right now to address them besides the police, and how those can potentially be strengthened? That's sort of my curiosity.
Okay, great. And Ella, which neighborhood are you in?
I'm in the downtown, sort of near Embarcadero, between Embarcadero and
Okay, great. Thank you, Ella.
University. Thank you.
Okay. iPhone DMAT, do you want to say something?
Yes, I'm sorry. Earlier, I don't know what I did with my phone, but yeah. So my name is Matthew Bonner. I live in Old Palo Alto. I moved about 2 years ago, and I've never had any problem with the police, I have to say. But I listened to the last council meeting last Monday, and I was surprised to hear two things. The first one was the increase in the police budget of apparently plus 5%, which I thought was surprising in the current environment. And the second thing that surprised me was all the testimonies about past police brutalities, which I think would require maybe a second look today, given the recent events. And I don't know, if I think it's Officer Jensen. Hello.
Sorry, I'm just gonna. Sorry, someone didn't mute themselves. Why don't you go ahead?
The second point was during the public comments, there were a few people who reported past accidents involving the police departments, and the police officer Jensen, the head of the police, at some point commented and mentioned that going forward, it would be accountable for anything, but I think that the accountability should also apply to anything that has happened in the past. And I think that whatever body the police of Palo Alto reports into should probably take another look at the past incidents to make sure that everything was handled appropriately. And if it was not, then measures should be taken. So that's my the 2 points that came out of this the last meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Matthew. Angel, followed by Harriet Stern. Angel, would you like to say a few words? Okay, then we'll move on to Harriet.
I've gone already.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Caroline's already gone. Okay, sorry, you guys are moving around on the Zoom screen, so it's hard for me to keep track. Let's see. I think Tracy B, have you gone yet? I don't think so. Tracy, okay, we'll skip Tracy then, and we'll go to Ben F. Okay, let me see. Let's see. Okay, so, okay, how about Jacob?
Yeah, hello. My name is Jacob Rothschild. I'm Jewish, and I've been living in the U.S. for quite a while. I live in San Jose, District 8, and I just want to say that these protests are completely meaningless. I mean, look at San Jose's police budget. It's nothing. Like, I think we should increase the budget and really arrest more Black people for the crimes they committed against humanity. Thank you. I yield my time.
Okay, I think he's a troll. Put him in the waiting room.
I know. We're getting some Zoom bombers here. Okay. And let's see. David?
Oh. Yeah, hello?
Yes, go ahead.
So, I think we should actually disband the police force all over the US and just let niggers do all the shooting and stealing.
Okay. That's really frustrating. We're having a lot of Zoom bombers.
Yeah.
I kicked him. Yeah, but it's really hard to keep them out because they keep changing their name, and I can't figure out how to keep them out.
So, Councilmember Tanaka, perhaps you could require that everyone has to be on the show their video and show their face rather than an image or something else. And if they will not do that, they cannot be part of the conversation.
Shut up, bitch! Shut up, bitch! Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to drop everyone who doesn't show their face. Let's see. Okay, I think Justin, admit no other people at this point to the room.
I'm not going to admit anyone else. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're getting.
We might keep people in the waiting room, but there's nothing else we could do.
Why'd you bring Corona over here, you ching chong cunt?
Okay, so let's get rid of this guy. Okay.
Fucking chink.
Let's see, this one too.
I guess this really shows what we have a real problem with in this community.
Yeah, so I don't think it's necessarily our community. I think it's
Black people die in hell.
Can you fix that, Justin?
That was Ben F. They were using a recorded video, so I removed him.
Okay. Okay, so basically, let's see, do we have any other Zoom bombers on here?
I think everyone else is good.
Okay. Okay, guys, sorry about that. We're gonna stop admitting anyone else because it's just crazy here. So I think did everyone have a chance to introduce themselves and give your perspective? Okay, so yeah, so I guess I want to just expand on a couple of things. So Brady, you mentioned that there was an issue on I guess near the donut shop near your house. Is that right? Do you want to talk a little bit more about what you saw?
Oh, it's not one that I saw. It's one that it was what was brought up at the
Okay.
recent city council meeting.
Okay.
I don't remember the officer's name, unfortunately, but the man that threw the other man to the ground. It's my understanding that took place at Happy Donuts.
Okay. So and then I think Catherine, you were talking a little bit about some of the issues that you felt in the community. I'd love to have kind of like your firsthand account on some of the things that you've seen or felt. You're muted though.
Okay. One of the interactions was when my son was first diagnosed with schizophrenia, and I needed to call the police to get him 5150'd. And I was afraid that he would be injured by the police or that someone would be shot and killed during the interaction. I made sure that they knew that his father was a criminal defense attorney. He still had to be handcuffed and put in the back seat of a police car. And no one in my family has ever had to interact with the police. So it was very traumatic. It's still traumatic today to think that my child had to be handcuffed and put in the back seat of a police car for a medical issue. I don't feel like I need to call the police when I need my son admitted to the hospital. So I want to have another resource. I want to be able to call somebody else. The second time he needed to be admitted to the hospital was a few years later, and I absolutely refused to call the police. I had his dad and I just drag him into the car and try to get to the Stanford emergency room. So I really, and soon after that, I think there was another man who had the police called on him for mental illness, and he had a butter knife. He was at the mental health facility, Momentum, and that man was shot and killed within minutes by the police after they were called, just because he had a butter knife. And the police don't understand that people who have mental illness are delusional. They don't understand, they're not going to follow your commands. And often the object that they have is something that they are delusional about. It's not like they're going to try to hurt anybody. So I really feel strongly that we need a mental health unit to come, a crisis unit to come if a person is having a mental health issue, not the police.
Okay. Well, it's a good first-hand account. I appreciate that. Does anyone else have any other first-hand account of their interaction with the police? Okay. So
I also want to say one more time.
Oh, sure.
I want to say one more thing. So I never get stopped by the police for driving. One night, maybe 5 years ago, I was driving home on a Sunday night and a police car kind of pulled up to me and flashed his lights. I tried to move down to a part of the street where I felt was safer, and he kind of rushed my car and sounded his lights like he was being aggressive. And then once he stopped me, he started quizzing me about the speed limit in like a 1 block section of the road, and I told him it was 25. And then he kind of said, well, you could have had drugs or something in your car, which is hilarious. And then another police car like zoomed up, and I don't know. And then I showed him my ID. I said I was going to pull into my driveway because I was on my street. And he said, well, won't you be embarrassed in front of your neighbors? And I said, no, because what I'm thinking is I want witnesses. And then for some reason he just left. I guess I didn't look like the type who had drugs, but he didn't even give me a ticket for anything.
Did you ever report the incident?
No, I didn't. I'm never really, that's the first time I've been stopped by the police in decades. So I guess I was just too shocked.
Okay. Okay. Katie, you mentioned you're doing a PhD. Is it PhD on this topic? Okay. I'll actually...
So I study, so I study political science generally, mostly security forces and armed groups in other countries. So I don't profess to be an expert on police violence, but there is a really good literature in political science that examines how and when police use force, and it tries to understand who the police are most likely to pull over or confront, and when they escalate in those particular situations. So if you're interested, I'd be happy to put together a reading list with some of my colleagues to send you some evidence-based research that might inform some of the policies that Palo Alto chooses. But yeah, so I'm personally not an expert on it, but I do have a lot of colleagues that are interested in the topic.
Okay, well, it's definitely the topic of the day, and we've been getting hundreds and hundreds of emails on this topic. So definitely, it's something where I think that there's a need to improve. Okay, but yeah, so definitely, if you could share anything, I'd appreciate it. Okay, so we've heard some first-hand accounts. Does anyone have any second-hand accounts of interactions with the police that you guys like to share? Okay, it doesn't sound like. Oh, sorry. Catherine, did you want to say something?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So let's move on. Oh, sorry, Becky, why don't you go ahead?
I have one. We're friends. Some really good friends of our family are African American, and matter of fact, their oldest son and my oldest daughter are very good friends. And he was playing in the front yard with their dog one day, and police stopped and asked him, "What are you doing?" And he was in his own yard playing with his dog. And
how old was he at the time?
he's like, I think at the time he was like anywhere from, they're now 18, but this happened like in the last year or two. And yeah, and I just think that's kind of alarming that would happen. They just asked him why, the police, I mean, they went along when but he had to explain that I actually live here and this is my home and I'm playing in my front yard with my dog. And that was, I mean, he wasn't doing anything wrong. But I don't think that the police would have done that with my daughter.
Okay. Carolyn, go ahead. You're muted though.
This is not firsthand, this is secondhand, but
sure.
One of my neighbors who is African American never goes out without a coat and tie in the city of Palo Alto because he has been stopped so often for just driving while black, as we call it. So that's just a comment. And I've heard some other stories that I can't verify, so I don't want to repeat them on a public forum.
Sure, I understand. Okay. Okay. Did anyone else want to say any kind of secondhand accounts? Because this is always useful to hear, but otherwise we'll move on. Okay, so let's move on. So there's been a lot of calls for us to adopt 8 Can't Wait. I think most people are familiar with it, right? So it's like basically ways to reform. You guys might have seen that the Palo Alto Police is banning from using neck holds as part of the reform. Does anyone have any thoughts about kind of the 8 Can't Wait proposal or other types of police reform? Carolyn, go ahead.
All right, do you want us to question what they are or just to comment on them?
For me, the reason why I hold these office hours is because I want to hear from the community's thoughts on okay. topics. So really, the purpose of this is for me, I'm trying to get smarter about these topics, right? I'm trying to understand what the community cares about, maybe insights that you guys have, different perspectives, because I want to make sure that we can make the situation better than it is. And so, but I can't confess to have all the knowledge in the world. So I'm really looking to get advice and perspectives.
I guess I was reading the weekly article and trying to understand the police department's policy about chokeholds. And I found it a little confusing. So maybe you could clarify why they still feel it's necessary at certain times. The wording was such that it gives them an out for almost any situation that they consider dangerous. So I'm hoping that the city council will put pressure on the police department to adopt some of these. Maybe you could explain the no chokehold one.
I don't know. I mean we haven't had any, as a council, we haven't had any discussion on this particular thing. So I don't know. I haven't seen a staff report on it. Staff can unilaterally adopt policies, but as a council, we haven't had a chance to deliberate this. But I do think that that some of these do need to be deliberated and looked at really closely to figure out what our best practices, what works, what doesn't work. But I'm not a law enforcement official, so I don't actually know. But I am interested in hearing people's perspectives, though. Alice or Matthew? Alice, you want to go first, and then Matthew?
So I was surprised when I read the 8 can't wait and did put in our city, and it came out that we had really only adopted 2 of them, and there were 6 that were, still waiting for adoption, I should say. And I was really surprised with the city. I've lived here since 1986, and I consider Palo Alto a pretty liberal and modern city. And I thought, what's happening here? Why aren't we 8 out of 8? And then I started looking into it, and I feel that we've lost in Palo Alto, we've lost the citizens and the community oversight over certain things. Of course, we have the city council and we elect the city council members, but when the city council members put something back to staff, or they put something back to the police chief to fix, it's like having the fox watch the hen house. It's not a valid way of having third-party oversight of a situation that needs correction, I think. And I think that the city council should be more involved in it. And I don't feel that the giving that up to the police chief and the city manager is the right way to do, especially in these times. These are times when we really need to take a hold of this issue. And I was also surprised to see that the auditing of the police brutality cases was not maintained over the years, and the reports were not given to the city council, including like body camera footage from certain police brutality issues. And from what I read, and this could be faulty research, but from what I read is the city council was not given what they needed to look at to basically ensure that the city and the police department's values are aligned.
So Alice, thanks for comments on that. I'll just respond really quickly, which is I think that I actually kind of feel the same way as you do, in that I think that for a large part of the city, it kind of runs by itself through staff, but the staff members aren't necessarily elected, right, or even appointed by city council. And so there's not the kind of direct accountability you get. Like for me, if you don't like what I'm doing, I get voted out, right? Or if you like what I'm doing, I get voted in, right? And so there's direct accountability for the elected officials. But because we have a very strong city manager government, most of what happens in the city, staff decides, almost unilaterally. And so there's not, especially as you go one level down, which is like the police chief, you don't have the same kind of accountability. Like in some places, the police chief is actually elected, right?
Right.
Or it's directly appointed by the city council, right? It reports into the city council. But in our case, it reports into the city manager. And so the city manager has incredible amount of control and discretion as to what he could do, but he's not elected, right? And in general, it's staff members are like almost like fixtures in the city. They don't change very often. It's actually really hard to change them, even for city council. So you don't have that kind of maybe as responsive to the community as you might want. So it's good. It's a good point, and it's something which I actually am trying to push for. I'm trying to get at least to have appointed officials looking over this, like the HRC, Human Relations Commission, or something like that, really diving in on what's going on. Matthew, I think you want to say a few words.
Yeah, so it's more a question, and pardon my ignorance on these topics, but it seems like the police department reports into the city manager, what would it take to change the reporting line and maybe to create a dotted reporting line to the city council?
Yeah, in other cities, it's like that, right? In other cities, sometimes the police chief is elected, right? Is elected role. Sometimes it reports in the city council, or in our case, we put almost all the power behind the city manager, and the city manager is something that the city council appoints. But it's like it's hard for the city council to go 2 levels in to control the police chief because it's not directly accountable to the city council. So I think it would take a um, change of our city charter to do that, because right now there's only 4 people that report into the city council. So the city manager, city auditor, city clerk, and city attorney. So we have those 4 that report directly in. So we would need to have a change where there would be a 5th or 6th person reporting into city council, and then you have a lot more direct control. But that's what it would take. And some places it is set up that way, but not here. Here it's much more. City council is like a board of directors, and the city manager is like the CEO of the city, where we could basically hire or fire him, but it's really hard to tell him exactly what to do because we're not day-to-day operations.
And do you feel, sorry, if I don't know, yeah,
No, go ahead.
do you feel that the city manager is open to these kind of changes, or is he resisting?
I don't think I've ever asked him, so I don't know how he would feel about it. It would reduce his power though, so I don't know whether he would be. Most people would not be amenable um, to having their power reduced. I don't know about how he would feel, but it would make the police department more responsive to the city because it would report in 2 people who are elected by the community. And of course, if you wanted to go all the way, you can make this a elected role as well. Like some people have the police chief as elected, but not here. So, but it is an interesting idea to kind of improve the accountability.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Okay. So anyone else have any other thoughts about It Can't Wait? Oh, Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, so like what Alice was saying, I put Palo Alto into the 8can'twait.org and found that there were only 2 reforms that the city of Palo Alto had passed for the police department. One of the first things that I was kind of thinking about is like, do we even know? Okay, so I think all of these reforms are good and that we should, enact them. And I think they're short-term fixes, but we really need to understand the scope of the problem. And so I did some research and I tried to figure out if there was any data published online when the last kind of reports about the police department were published. And I found that there's an annual report, but it doesn't give a lot of information. The last report published about bias in policing is from 2010. And the only data online about Palo Alto policing is often related, let me see if I can pull it up, to traffic citations and vehicle collisions. So there's no public data on arrests or who's being arrested or when police use force. And I think that is kind of the first step, is to just understand what needs to be fixed long term. And then to also make this data available to the city council and to the public, to have some sort of accountability to the police department.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of open data because I think Sunshine really improves a lot of different things, and I think there's some reluctance because I know there's data I've asked for as a council member as well, and I've been refused. But I do think that it is important that we, unless there's some like super personal information, but I think in general, the our city government in general, but especially the police department, needs to be much more open about what's happening, because we need to build trust in the community to make sure that um, that any issues are surfaced, right? And I realize that there's also a bunch of union regulations, right, in terms of what can be reported, and so that it's counterweighted by that, because there's a lot of policy and procedures are put in place because of negotiations. And so I know there's limitations because of that, but in general, I think we want to make as much of this kind of data public as possible to really rebuild the confidence that that things are going right. You know, so I think Kate, it's a good comment.
So
Okay.
if you adopted 8 can't wait, who's adopting it? The city council, and it has no power because the city manager is over the police department?
Well, it's kind of interesting, a good question, right? So what I found is, so for instance, we just talked about open data. So I a couple years ago, 3 years ago, I got into the comp plan that we're going to be part of this open data standard that pretty much a lot of other cities are part of, so we can compare how we're doing against other cities. And it was voted in by a majority of city council, but unfortunately, staff is not really bought into it. They're not really gung-ho about being part of this open data thing where it's easy to compare cities against each other. And so it's been, I don't know, 2 or 3 years now, and still hasn't been done. And so this was a council direction. Now theoretically, we could fire the city manager. Say, hey, you didn't follow our direction, so we're going to fire you. But literally, that's one power you have, is either you fire or don't fire the city manager. Because you're a black board, we don't have direct control over the individuals. So let's say we adopted the 8 can't wait. If it's not embraced by the police chief and city manager, the only other option we have is actually firing them, right? So it's like it's a very blunt tool. We don't really have a fine. All of the elected officials in Palo Alto are part-time, right? We're literally like a board of directors, so we don't have direct operational control. We can't, like, for something as small as, okay, as example, I've asked for, we get these reports that are hundreds of pages of PDF files of tables, right? That come from a spreadsheet, right? And I've asked, oh, can we get this report as a spreadsheet so we can actually add up the numbers ourselves? And the answer is no. You can only get it as this PDF file. Something as simple as that, I can't, unless we fire the city manager, I can't override that, right? So basically what has to happen is the council has to be so upset about what the city manager does that they fire them. But there's a bunch of relatively small things that the city manager can or cannot do, and the only other thing you could do is you have to fire the city manager. There's not much choice, right? So sorry, Carolyn, go ahead.
Well, what you're saying, Greg, is very extremely discouraging to hear as a community member of the city of Palo Alto. So essentially, we're being run by someone we have no control over.
Well, we have control. We have the ultimate fire.
Yes, you can fire him. I've got to look up who it is, but so we elect you to represent us and take care of the city, and yet your only recourse is to fire him. What can we do right now to put pressure on the city manager? Through the city council, or what are ideas do you have for us?
Yeah, definitely through the city council. This is why I'm holding this office hour, because I know this is a topic that the community cares about, and so I want to hear it. Now, what I would encourage everyone on this call and others who may be listening to do is to write into city council, because the city manager, the chief of police also sees this, and the police chief doesn't want to get fired. The city manager doesn't want to get fired, right? So if they see enough outcry about something, then they'll start worrying that maybe 4 members of the city council will vote to fire them, right? So while we do have this blunt tool, it's up to the city manager and police chief to kind of read the tea leaves to see where the community is, because if they get too far out of whack, then they will get fired, right? Sorry, Matthew, go ahead.
No, sorry. Just at the last city council, there was a decision taken on the item of police governance and actions, and I believe it's basically a review of the policies and procedures and governance with a plan to put together some concrete proposals to affect changes. Maybe a practical thing to do would be to ask the city manager in 3-6 months from now, I don't know what the timeline would be, to put together a plan to actually report to the city council and the community under, in his name, and present the plan as being his plan, since he has the most direct oversight on the police department. And so that would be a notification to all the Palo Alto residents. Hey, dear residents, we're going to have the city manager present his plan on the police departments, and everybody will be able to hear what his proposals are and to ask him questions, and the city council can see by itself whether the city manager is listening or not listening.
Yeah. So, Athena, you have your hand raised. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I'm a little bit unsure about 8 Can't Wait, because there's been other cities who have adopted it and their police haven't been held accountable, like New York banned chokeholds way long ago, and yet someone died from it. So how can we hold our police accountable for 8 Can't Wait if that's just like, if this is even a conversation we're having, if we can't even hold accountable the city manager?
Yeah. Well, I think, the one main job for city council is to actually hold the city manager responsible, right? So that is our main task. And so uh, I think unfortunately, I don't think there are simple solutions to this. I think the problem is actually fairly complicated, and I think for us, we probably need to. It's one thing to say, "Oh yeah, we're going to do it," another thing to actually do it, and another thing to actually do it but be effective. And so I think those are some of the things that I think still have to do as a city, is really not just do the um, lip service to it, but actually um, how do we actually affect positive change? And that's a lot harder because there's organizational issues. There's of course just the straight policy issues, and we have a operation manual that also has to be updated and whatnot. But it's not. I have a feeling, because this is issues that's been going on for a while. It's not a simple 5-minute discussion. We get a fixed type of thing. I do think it's pretty deep, and that changes have to be made. I don't think it's gonna be a simple. I don't think it's a quick fix type of thing where we say, oh, we do 8 Can't Wait and everything's good. I don't think it's quite like that, but I could be wrong. So I do think you bring up a good point.
Hey,
Catherine,
by the way, we have about 3 minutes left from this meeting. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Catherine, please.
Is there any way that the community can evaluate the police? Has there ever been an effort like that? And then secondly, if we did want to restructure the police, how would we do it? Like taking them out of certain functions, like controlling the homeless, or even traffic stops and mental health care. How do we do that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think there's actually a lot of union rules that kind of like create rather strict policies. So I think that would be something that have to be negotiated. I think one thing that I've promoted, and not just for a police department, but for the whole city, is feedback forms. So I know, like with like the art center, if you take a class from the art center, they give you a feedback form like, how was this, right? So it's just one way to give feedback. For police, it's not so simple to just do that, right? But maybe something similar, some sort of feedback mechanism could happen. But I do think that is kind of one step. But to restructure like what people's roles are, who does what, there's a lot of negotiation has to happen with the unions. It's not like in the private sector we could just change anything you feel like and just make it happen. There's a lot of we have these written contracts with lots of detail.
Right, but that's what we're discussing with this new movement, is that we need to completely restructure the police department, even though it's difficult, because people are dying.
Yeah, no, I hear you. There's definitely been a call for that. In fact, that's kind of like my last question here, because I think Justin says we're almost out of time here. Is I've got a ton of emails saying that we should defund the police department. I'll love to get people's opinion on this, because this seems like a fairly tall or a fairly dramatic step. And so what's folks feel on that? I've got a lot of emails on it, but I'm not sure how many people actually are here in our city. Carolyn, please go ahead.
I just read you what the cartoon is in the Mercury this morning, and that he says, defund the police? If that's what you mean, count me out. Oh no, he says, no, it means a reassessment of law enforcement methods and priorities, emphasizing accountability, enacting reforms and redirecting resources where appropriate, thereby refocusing on the mission to serve and protect. The other guy says, oh, why didn't you say so? So that's not defund the police. It's essentially, build it back into serve and protect, right? Instead of a police force and an army type of a mission, which we seem to have gotten into since 9/11.
Does anyone else? It's a good cartoon. Does anyone else have any other thoughts about this?
I also don't like that term defund the police. I think that just strikes fear into people, and I actually think it's a counterproductive to what we're all trying to do, which is really, like you said, Carolyn, get back to a place of serve and protect. But also, it further to what Catherine said is that the police shouldn't really be involved in cases of mental health. They're not really trained for that. They don't have the skills necessary to do that. Are there situations where we do need police officers in force? Yes, we do. But are there situations where we need other individuals who are trained with different skills and have different motives? Well, yes, we do. And I think it needs to be, instead of a police department and whatever, what about just a community safety department? And then the police are part of it, and mental health is part of it, and homelessness and advocates for that are a part of it. It's just changing. And I really think, and this is the last thing I'll say, is that although the city council does have a big hammer in firing the city manager, it also needs to give him goals and objectives from the people, the citizens of the city, of how they want their city run. And you have also the other hammer of the budget. You can approve his budget or not approve his budget. And if he doesn't have an approved budget, he can't spend that money in the police department or wherever. And if he does have budget money to keep a library open, he has to keep it open. But if you don't approve that, then he has to close it. So I think it's the money too. It's not just firing him, it's his budget.
Yeah, I think Alice, that's a good point. And Brady, I'm going to call on you next, but let me just respond to Alice. So I do. So first of all, I'm not saying we have to fire the city manager or even chief of police, but I do think Alice, you bring up a good point, and something which I've advocated for, which is, like if you look in the private sector, most of the CEOs of companies, they're strongly bonused, where if they perform well, they get a bigger bonus. If they don't perform well, they get a smaller bonus. And with our city manager, it doesn't happen like that. He gets a house, $3-4 million house, no matter what, and he gets hundreds of thousands, $500,000 or whatever, like a lot of pay, no matter what, whether he does a great job or not a good job. And if we don't like it on city council, then it's kind of up or down. But I think rather than that, maybe, and something I've tried to push for is maybe there should be some sort of performance pay, right? Where if you do a better job, you get paid more. So there's more, so the incentives are aligned versus like it's either this black or white type thing, because it's typically it's not such a black and white situation, right? And what you want to get alignment. So Alice, I think is a good point, and I've actually kind of pushed in that direction. But definitely if you still feel strongly about this, write into city council and let other people know about their thoughts. Brady, sorry, go ahead. Oh, sorry, Brady, then Ella.
So I'll just mostly say, back up everything Alice just said. I think the idea of completely defunding and getting rid of the police department is not a great one. And it's a real shame that people have latched onto that defund the police as a movement name. When really what it means is, and it is, part of it is defunding the police so that we can fund other things, but that's more moving money around. And so I think that we need to look at what can we do to implement some of these ideas that have been talked about. So I'll just leave it there.
Okay, Ella, did you want to say a few words? And then Matthew? Ella, you're muted. Okay, Matthew, do you want to say a few? Oh, sorry, Ella, go ahead.
Yeah.
Your connection's not good, Ella.
So I just was, I sort of am here, just don't think I'm muted.
No, you're not muted, just your voice is super choppy, but go ahead. Okay, Matthew, why don't you go ahead? Okay, Ella, why don't you go ahead? Sorry, Ella, please go. It's hard to hear you.
Sorry, I'm in the car. basically, I just wanted to echo the fact that I think leveraging the budget could be a really powerful tool. But I police department that we can use the budget to encourage like good police behavior, because we don't even know what like the behavior of the police looks like because we don't have that data. So I feel like using the budget as sort of an incentive or disincentive to encourage accountability within the police department, and actually getting the numbers, like who are they pulling over, why are they pulling them over, how are they pulling them over, like who are they actually arresting, blah, blah, blah. I think that's important to know before we can actually implement any reforms that would be useful or helpful.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the most important things is actually getting the data, right? So that, because that's sunshine, and I think sunshine is a good thing for a lot of problems. Let's see. Matthew, you want to say? I think you want to say. I'll give you the last word because we're running kind of over time here. So,
sorry, and I'll try to be quick. I don't really like the defund the police threat or request. I think it's too emotional, and I don't think it's warranted for Palo Alto. But I do agree the budget to me is a good tool to demand transparency. If the 5% budget increase is to buy AK-47, I think that's a bad budget decision. If it's to do more constructive things, maybe that's warranted. So you have, as a council member, as a city council, it seems like you have a say to approve this budget. And then I think, since you're the board, like you mentioned, I think transparency and accountability are two things that you have to demand to a CEO in whatever situation. And I think that's even more true for the situation of handling the police department in Palo Alto, given what happened recently. So to me, it would seem that the city council should make transparency and accountability on police departments two things that the city managers owe you, otherwise it could be fired. And I think that's should be made clear to him, and maybe you. Well, anyway, sorry, I spoke too long. But
No
transparency and accountability to me are like two must-have from the city manager. If he doesn't fulfill these requirements, I'm not sure he's the right city manager.
Okay, no, I appreciate it. Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for taking time out of your Sunday to chat with me. This is very helpful. Please stay involved. If you have any other suggestions or ideas, feel free to email me. We might have more office hours on this topic, because I know we could go on for a long time on this topic, but just want to thank everyone for spending time with me. I really appreciate it. Okay.
Well, thank you very much to you.
Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank